Hello and welcome to RapLoupe, the podcast by RapNet, where we bring you conversation with leaders shaping the global diamond and jewelry industry. I am Sati Nair and I will be your host for today's episode. Today's conversation focuses on how the diamond and jewelry industry is evolving from innovation and technology to transparency, sustainability, and global growth. Joining us today is Mr. Nilesh Chhabria, COO of Finestar Diamonds and Jewellery, with extensive experience across international markets, technology. Nilesh brings a strong perspectives on how business are adapting today to a rapidly changing the industry. Nilesh, it's great to have you here and with us on RapLoupe. Hi, Nilesh, welcome to RapLoupe. To begin with, I wanted to ask you, my understanding, you were not from the diamond industry. You're from a technology background, digital marketing and everything. What drew you to the industry?
So first of all, thank you, Sati, for having me on your lovely podcast. Just a little information about me is that yes, I'm not from this industry. I hail from a background of corporate, and after my MBA, I got into the corporate side of the business, more on the marketing side of the strategy side of the business. I used to typically run marketing campaigns for brands like HUL, Kellogg's, Unilever, Foxstar News, just to name a few. So all these companies, what we did is we typically helped them with their marketing strategies and launches of their campaigns, whatever it was. Being somewhere very in close proximity of the diamond jewelry industry, it got me a lot intrusive about it, more into wanting to know more about the industry. And as it became so easy for me to come in and join it, so I found a lot of potential back in 2009. We saw something great, so I said, why not? Let's give it a try. And then I did was we started a small B2B jewelry brand by the name of Vara Jewels, which was which was a sister company of Finestar, and we used to make the jewelry line for Indian local jewelry retailers in India. And I did that for the last, I think, 5 years of my life. And then after that, from 2015, I joined the Finestar's parent company, where we were trying to focus on our business of manufacturing of polished diamonds. And that's what I got involved in. So as a CEO, I joined it, and slowly got fully involved into the strategy, the technology side, the sales, the marketing, and customer relationship, and slowly more on the complete leadership part of Finestar. That was what I did.
What's making you to stay in the industry?
I think the beautiful part of challenges in life are it helps you navigate something out of it, which is kind of a very exciting thing to do. So whenever you get up in the morning, you should feel some kind of a drive, and that's pushing me to still keep doing what I'm doing, to keep innovating yourself, identifying new things to do, and moving on with that. So that's what's just the drive that is there very much still.
Absolutely, because when you get up in the morning and then when you go to the office or to the business, you have to have some drive to go and do into that. If not, it doesn't make any sense. And I understand that you joined in the industry at that point of time. You have a background of marketing and digital technology and everything. In that point of time, there was nothing more shosharaba about marketing. And that time you came into the industry. And what are some key changes you have seen it over the years? When you stepped into the business, what are the key changes or strategies you early focused on? Because you mentioned about marketing, your experience in the digital side and technology side. When you stepped in the business, there was no such kind of marketing or anything. The technology was not adapted to the industry as the way now it is adapted. What changes you have focused?
Sati, in 2009, when I got into the jewelry side of the business, I was in a little shock because the industry in general was very unorganized. Unorganized in a way that everything over here was done based out of a simple handshake. There's a lot of trust, but unfortunately, all of this brings inefficiency as well. So what we felt that when I came in, I realized that unfortunately when you're a corporate person, you're wired to be structured, data driven, lean operations. These were the more essential things that we needed to implement. So when I came into the jewelry business, the key thing that I started doing was when you started manufacturing jewelry line for a market like India, the market like India is super diverse. Like what sells in the north of India, what sells in the west or south or east are all different qualities. And back in the day, the mentality was how much physical stock you have, that much sale you'll get. But which I felt was not the right way because how much of stock can you keep of every category? So keeping those factors in mind, what I did was I said, why should I not make a digital presentation, which is a very CAD-driven, very realistic designs of a specific thematic concepts of products which will work for that market. So if I know I'm going to visit my customer in north of India, I know the taste out there. I would make a jewelry line or a design line based out of who we are visiting and make it in CAD CAM designs, the presentation which is more realistic, and get orders and so on and so forth. I moved around. So what happened in this whole process is that my fund kept rotating and it was not stuck in my stock. So it somewhere helped me, that part of digitalization in jewelry helped me back in 2010, 11, and we did some decent business back in the day. Now, when it comes to, I joined the parent company in 2015 in Finestar. Finestar was known as typically a wholesaler but not as a manufacturer. We had started manufacturing 4 5 years before that, but somewhere the mentality of our customers was still about, hey, if they're uploading the stone on RapNet, it is not their own manufacturing. They must have bought it by somebody and uploaded it. So to change that mentality, we needed to do a few things. First is that we needed to rebrand ourselves to sound and act like a manufacturer. So our and that comes with first having a very strong foundation, which is about manufacturing. Is a few things that we did was we created a strong digital nervous system. Meaning, what do you mean by that is that our core of our business was starting with technology. What we did was that we created a strong base where everything was, whether when we are sourcing our rough diamonds, we were collecting the data and analyzing them, and further if we were planning the diamonds, or whether each and every stage of manufacturing that is there, all of that was capturing data analytics, and finding solutions for that so-called that set of stage based out of data. So that was something we created, and we made a very strong in-house ERP robust system. So the digital transformation from point A of rough sourcing all the way to selling through our B2B e-commerce platform of finestardiamonds.com, that the whole process is something what we had a change into our system back in 2015. By doing this, all these processes, it just made sure that we had one part of this done. Second most essential thing what we did is we bought diamonds directly from miners only. So we were sourcing diamonds only from miners, which assured us to get country of origin. So this was the second most essential part of it, which assured us to give more transparency and trust into the company. We created a strong, if you have a great technology and a great platform like your website, you need to have a strong sales team which is aligned and synced with the website as well. And keeping those factors in mind, we made sure that that business was done in such a way that we had different sales team at different locations catering to different markets, and pitching to the client in the right way and catering them. So this whole aspect of the business was what we essentially strongly did in the start of the business, and we did decent numbers. Secondly, what we did is, because of country of origin coming in, strong transparency came into the picture, trust factor came into the picture, and most essentially, because of the strong ERP system of capturing data from the start of when we started our company, that was the main foundation of Finestar, it became very easy for us to join platforms like Tracer and adapt different blockchain, and that just helped us further grow into the business.
Yeah, absolutely. Because industry actually not adapted to the technology in the past, in the beginning, but this big changes came actually during the COVID time. People started adapting to the digital situation. I think you have actually envisioned that, and then you started much before that. That's a success of Finestar. Now, we see a lot of changes during the COVID or geopolitical situation, and responsible sources become an important factor. And you mentioned that Finestar is doing. How does Finestar ensure that ethical sourcing across the supply chain? Tell me a little bit about that.
So Sati, the biggest mistake that most of the companies start thinking is that ethical sourcing is, they look at it as a critical response to a problem that has come, rather than it being a core philosophy of the company. And from the time when we started manufacturing, we had a very clear principle that if we are going to buy any form of rough, it has to be directly from miners, and it cannot be from the secondary market. So that helped us get that through. It is not about, if a company is getting into some kind of ethical sourcing is because they are being pressured by regulations and sanctions, and then things have to be sorted. That's not the way how business is done. If your core philosophy is not ethical sourcing, then what will happen is you're not looking from a long-term 10, 20-year perspective of doing the right business, which is transparent business. So that's where we started, and we had a few easy steps ahead to do that. So let me explain that more in detail. What we did was, because of the fact that we bought the diamonds only from direct mining or auction houses, which are part of mining companies, we could give country of origin of each and every stone. So that helped us move one step ahead. Secondly, because we had such a strong ERP system, robust ERP system, which assured each and every stage data that I had captured, I could give a traceability certificate for each and every stone. So each and every stone in Finestar is 100% traceable, which makes it so easy for any client to trust us, especially the top 5 maisons, the brands who are more worried than we are for taking unethical diamonds into picture. This becomes the most essential part. Third is, when the G7 sanctions came into place, it created a situation where it became difficult for a lot of companies to explain the right ethical diamonds that they had, ethically sourced diamonds that they had. They could not even showcase that as ethical enough because there was no capturing of data. So the whole inventory became unethical. And we went through that phase with zero friction because we were ready to give you country of origin. And that really helped us. So rather than looking at it as a problem, make it a core philosophy which will make your business more clean. I'll give you an example of a very high-end brand, luxury brand out of Europe. They were worried because at that point in time, there was a holiday time coming in, and they had to stock as per the holiday. And they were worried because there was nobody who they could source from, especially even the top companies who could not give that information of which country it was from. And fortunately, we've got in touch. I could give them complete data. In fact, I could showcase them the whole process of the whole thing in the factory, and it became a win-win situation for both of us, and we were happy to move ahead with our business.
Excellent, because you had already had that information, because a lot of companies actually started doing after the G7 sanctions. Probably nobody must have thought about such things. Now, tell me how important, you mentioned about the traceability, how important traceability it is for the consumer or maybe for your B2B customer. Is it becoming a important differentiator for you?
Oh, absolutely. It is very essential. And in fact, if I will tell you, from 2019 is when we came up with our own traceability certificate. That traceability certificate just does not tell you the country of origin, but it gives you information of all the stages and how the rough weight of that specific rough piece gradually decreases, and finally what is the polish outcome of that. That whole thing is very detailed explained in a certificate, which is what we give over and above the GIA certificate. And this is now a digital smart card, so which you can use it as a QR scan code, and the smart card is branded with the retailer's logo. So as we have our major clientele from the US market, we're typically more of the high-end luxury retailers, independent jewelers, and all of them. They don't have the kind of they don't have the kind of support in terms of marketing tools for them to speak beyond the four C's of GIA. And this becomes a very great talking point for that retailer to speak, especially when he can say that's the card, that it's his card, rather than it being a Finestar card, because it's completely branded by his logo and his color quotient and palette. So while doing this, it has helped us create a great relationship with all of these retailers, and we have sold more than probably to 2,500 retailers in the US and Canada market, which swear by our traceability certificate to buy diamonds from us, because it is a great talking point for them to even understand and explain to the customer. And not just about a marketing tool, but they're creating a assurance in their head that everything is clean and precise, and I'm not going to get any form of legal hassle. That's the most peaceful thing for a retailer while sourcing a diamond, and that's what you should give them, the transparency and the trust for them to come back to you and create a consistent brand for yourself.
Yeah, absolutely, because trust and transparency is very important. So you are saying that giving a digital card to the retailers, and the retailers can punch in and their consumers can see that where the diamonds has come from.
Exactly.
Excellent. So you have started doing it almost everything before everybody's. That's why they are staying with you. Now innovation become a big focus. Now I know, as a manufacturer of Finestar, you are very prominent and very strong in the fancy shapes cuts. Not everybody has it. How does it differentiating from other people? Is it a differentiating factor? Because designs or innovations or new ideas, it's very important for the end consumers. Innovation seems to be a big focus. If you do the same thing over and over again, your importance depleted. Now, how new cut designs or product offerings differentiate you from other companies? As a matter of fact, I know that Finestar is very strong in the fancy cuts, and which nobody, many of them doesn't have it, because the precision and everything is very important. Tell me a little bit about that, Nilesh.
So, in the diamond jewelry industry, people think that the word innovation means coming up with something very cool and something extremely unique and it's eureka. But unfortunately, that's not the reality. The reality is that any form of innovation is created out of few factors. One being it's cold-hearted, data-driven, lot of customer feedback, analysis for you to even think of further moving ahead of doing something super innovative. Now, when you try to do anything unique or different, when you take steps way ahead of times, you will sound unique with a lot of arrows on your back. But then if you take slowly steps based on the customer feedback, the understanding, then you can slowly innovate, which is a very well thought over process that what we do at Finestar. So let me explain you with an example. We started, there was a point of time when the regular cushion modified the ratios of one ratio, 1.0, 1.1 ratio. Stones were not really moving, but but that's what was coming in planning, and we had to manufacture them, right? We understood that by actually elongating the stone a little bit basis of the kind of great softwares of performance, light performance that we have created in-house in our factory, we get to see that the brilliancy and the fire of the stone was getting much better as we stretched it. When we stretched it, then we showcased it across to our top high-end retailers, understanding what is the market trend, what is happening on social media, what's trending, what's the consumption pattern. Based on that, slowly we started elongating the stone, keeping the fact that the brilliancy and the fire does not move away. That is the main base and foundation when we try to innovate. So we started with 1.2, then 1.3 and 1.4, and we kept moving that in the exact shape. If you look at it, your finger is elongated. It's not round. So that was what we kept thinking, and we started doing that with a great amount of other fancy shapes that we also manufacture. How do we elongate, keeping the assurity that the brilliancy and the fire percentage, which used to be in the classic mix, has increased tremendously because the customer wants to see scintillation. That's what it is all about. So we started doing that. When we started doing that, that comes with hard analysis and data capturing. If you assume that it's going to happen that easily, it does not. Second also was not about the fact that it is elongating the stones, but like the stones like our ovals and pear shapes. Back in the day, the faceting created a bow tie effect. And how do we, that was the biggest problem, because as you go to a retailer and retailer shows it to the customer sees kind of a little blackish center, and they don't want to buy it. And that's what not really helps our business. So how we identified how to facet the pear shapes and the ovals in such a way that there is negligible or no bow tie. That comes with back a lot of re-engineering, going back and analyzing at the factory level. That's when we get to know how to do that. Same thing came with cushions and radiance, which had the crushed ice look. How do we reduce the crushed ice look to assure the brilliancy is much better? So that factor was taken into consideration. So we did those factors, worked on them. And then after achieving that, then we had that confidence that we can go ahead and create many more stones, and we started manufacturing more and more fancy shapes. While doing these things, we just didn't do it in fancy shapes. We took the high value risk of going even in larger stones, in these hybrid and large elongated stones, which was not there in the market. Now that is a very high risk, because the amount of money that you invest in a rough piece and you create a shape or try to do it a little differently from the existing classic makes is, if it goes wrong, it goes wrong. And you do not want to fall into that trouble because you put on that kind of money. So whenever we take that kind of risk, that risk is data driven. So you are taking very calculated risk. The calculated risk is identifying, as I said, market trends, consumption patterns, and having a great distribution network, and having your ears open and ready to listen to your customer. When all these factors are combined together, that's when you take a decision of doing something different and being available in stones of, imagine an elongated cushion, 15 carat and 10 carat stone. Everyone's going to be scared about doing that. But we did that, it moved on, and we sold.
I think it's not about making a different product. It's about differentiating based on what customer needs it. That's where the success is. You kept talking about information about you are taking about data driven, and then from the customers, what the customers need it. because without data you cannot decide on which direction we should go. How, and this is an AI driven area, and how you are leveraging AI into this data, because how do you get those information through AI, and how you're using AI to get this information about customer behavior, what the customer needs, and then that applies into your production, manufacturing, or designs, how you're doing, how you're using the AI.
So Sati, the thing is that technology and AI is the future, which is known to everybody. But what happens in typically traditional industries is that people use technology as an extra or a specific department, and they say, oh, we are doing AI. But if what we did as Finestar is we made sure that we ran the diamond business with the precision of a software company. What helped that in a way is that it is defined as a central nervous system of our whole operation of complete Finestar. Technology is based on that. And every so-called decision that we take from point A to point Z, everything is based out of data, and absolutely without that, there is no movement in the company. So when you do that kind of detailing, it helps you. Now, if you want to understand how we do that, is the most important aspect is now if you are considering precision sourcing. Now, when you go in the auctions and you bid, what exactly is the price that you need to pay is based out of the data that you've captured over the past multiple years of something similar, where you could identify whether it is from the fact that what is the sales that you have done of different planning that could come out of the stone, what is the stock in the market, what is today's trend, what is the market consumption. In totality of all of these aspects, this whole data, you get an algorithm through AI which tells you exactly what the price of that thing should be, and then it becomes easy for us to pay the right outcome while doing the rough sourcing. And once the rough sourcing enters into the factory through the strong ERP in-house software system, what happens is that we keep upgrading our in-house software on a daily basis, as compared to when you buy an existing software into and then inbuilt it into your system. That becomes tough. Where I have my own in-house company, which is an IT-based company running my in-house ERP system, and that ERP system's complete data is captured by my AR department. So it's all interlinked. So each and every stage of manufacturing, each and every decision is based out of data, to a point that today, if I have to price my diamond, which is put up on RapNet, it's a very algorithmic AI-driven decision. That's what is put up on the website, and that is what is seen on RapNet's complete laundry list of stones. And that helps us take decisions which are more confident of what it is and how it functions out. Today, we have, now with that, we have a great, strong B2B e-commerce platform of Finestar, which is giving details of each and every stone, I think more than like 35 parameters. And we have great digital assets for the customer sitting in any part of the globe to feel as if he's in his office and take a decision. So the point A to point Z is sorted, and where AI also helps us and identify that this stone is something that you should target to this customer because this is what he typically consumes.
And that can only happen with the data.
Absolutely.
Without data, it is not possible.
Absolutely.
Finestar is actually moved away from a manufacturing company to a technology company. That's what my understanding now it's getting it. It's because if we don't have data, you don't know what the customer needs it, and you cannot serve what they need it. And it's very important. Looking ahead, what you see the future of the diamond industry in terms of sustainability, technology, or ethical sourcing?
When you look at the future of diamonds, I think, everyone's a little worried, but I am a little positive in that side of the world, because I feel that natural diamonds is going to become rarer, it's going to become smarter, leaner and cleaner. And it's going to become a sustainable natural miracle through technology. Now, what I mean by saying all of this is that tomorrow the factories which are running these places, it would not be about the output of how much diamonds one can pull out, but how much footprint it creates. So sustainability will become a major goal that will come into picture, where the diamonds are going to be purely cut through renewable source of energy. The factories will have water harvesting, they'll have low wastage, it will have transparency, they will have sustainability, and will assure the factories are run in a very sustainable manner. Second, the diamond, with the kind of AI getting synced into the system and the data that is capturing, all of this combined is going to assure that the diamond cutting, it has become very precision driven. So it'll be very precise. The wastage of rough will become lesser. Planning will become much more accurate, and polishing from rough to polished, the diamond manufacturing will become more done by machines, and that will be done in a much more lesser time frame and reduced cost effectiveness in totality, where the diamond will be made in probably in a few days, which used to take some time, and certification will be done probably in a few hours. So all of that is going to become much more leaner and precision making. That is what I feel. When it comes to how it will be sold, is that it will now become the chances of you as an end consumer would now want. The modern women today are become very different. They want uniqueness. They want to stand out. They want a bold statement of what they wear in the ring. So that could be in the form of the design, which is completely personalized, or even the stone for that reason. We don't know. So if that comes into picture, probably there will be diamond cut specifically, uniquely for you, Sati.
Yes.
So that kind of detailing can come into place, and it will not be just a luxury-based thing. It will be a tech luxury. So that's what we see the future of natural diamond.
Natural diamond, in fact, it's going to be prominent in the future. It's a rare. It's not going to be produced in abundance. So it's going to have its prominent place in all time. I wanted to ask you last question about retail side. It's all about the inventory strategy, because now the industry is more about demand driven more than the supply, pulling from the supply side. How does retailers adapt their inventory strategy? Because nowadays the retailers are really reluctant to, my understanding that they don't want to stock the inventory. So how do they have to do it, the inventory strategy?
So the future of retail is going to be, and always will be, demand based, and to identify the right designs and jewelry and stocking the right things and replenishing them if it is not moving has to be done on on an instant basis, on a live basis, of you to get to understand your shelf life of your retail store. Now the fact that what you used to do 10-15 years back as a owner of a retail store is quite different from what you have to do today. Back in the day when a jewelry piece was made, 70% of it used to be diamonds and 30% used to be gold value. And at that point in time, because diamond prices were at least a decent amount and gold was cheaper, there was a constraint of how much diamonds can be a part of the piece. Everyone had budgets before, and it was not. But now things are become more design liberated. What I mean to say is that today, because the proportion of gold has increased, so now you can go down to utilizing low KT gold, and the diamond prices have softened. You can actually increase the amount of diamond proportion in your jewelry, and that will make it a very lightweight necklace which is studded with more diamonds, and will be more, there was a control on a designer to design how much they can, and now they can design it much more in detail and much more design driven. And I believe that the jewelry business is design centric and not extreme quality, too much quantity. It is about the right design. To a great extent, that will also come through a little bit of the even lab grown jewelry come into picture, where you can now have bigger, larger stones put up in bigger, in jewelry pieces, which was unheard of because it was big, it was very expensive. So that thing will actually do that part of it. So any company or any retailer, if he wants to do the business, he has to hear the consumer and rather do go by gut feeling. So understanding the market consumption and trend, which used to be once in a while to bother, now it's going to become a everyday scenario. So studying and learning much better, replenishing your inventory, making the right jewelry, what the modern woman, the Gen Zs want it, do that. Don't go by your gut feeling, which is not the reality. Yes, a little bit of your gut feeling and the data is the winner. You
Exactly.
cannot take a decision purely out of one aspect, and that will really make your business grow much better. And the people who do not intend to do that will fall back.
Yeah, I think it is very important. We kept saying about data, because without data, you don't know what the customer is looking for. The data is very important on the back end. What to replenish, what designs are going, what is not going. It's a desktop is sitting in my vault. So this is very important. So Nilesh, it was very insightful conversation in terms of traceability, sustainability, and technology. And we are going strong towards the digital side, and technology is very, very important in the industry right now. And thank you for being with us today.
Thank you for having me. Thank you so much.
Thank you.